Did he lose a ton of muscle, or exactly what happened? We get down to his weight. We can see it went from 78.6 kilograms all the way down to 68.2. Pretty goddamn significant changes. And when you factor in the proportional fat loss versus What's up guys, Derek, moreplace.com. Today we're gonna be talking about this guy who didn't eat food for 15 days and tracked his body composition as well as a myriad of different biomarkers. This was posted in the Moreplace subreddit. Thought y'all would find this interesting, lots of data. And yeah, it is pretty fucking interesting. I didn't eat food for 15 days and track data. By the way, quick side tangent. These hybrid teas are now available on Young LA. My coupon code MPMD will save you 15% at checkout. Just wanted to mention it quick because they're dropping and it's kind of, one of my new favorite shirt that I've been wearing. So I've been wearing it in a few of my videos and I've been wearing it to the gym lately as well as out and about and shit, and they're pretty solid. So check them out. It's kind of like a hybrid of activewear meets, lifestyle. So anyways, I didn't eat food for 15 days and track data, 15-day water fast. You can see his metrics here, and this is a pretty elaborate thread with a lot of people. You can clearly see the outline of a penis in the body scan. So anyways, they talk about a lot of different shit in here, and the biomarkers are actually very interesting as well as the body composition changes. Because again, you would imagine some pretty significant aberrations are going to occur, and you'd like to find out how much muscle did this guy lose versus fat. Obviously if you don't eat any fucking food for over 2 weeks, you would expect significant losses in, fat mass, as well as, how significant of a detriment will it be to lean body mass. This is what you find out here, and some pretty, big changes, and some of them are kind of weird, to be honest. So for example, his right arm versus his left arm, we see here that his left arm dropped by, let's see, the fat mass dropped by almost 250 grams. Lean body mass dropped by a fuck ton, dude. Almost 600 grams. But somehow his right arm, the fat mass only drops about 30 grams and the lean mass only drops about 70-ish. So I don't know, it was just kind of a funny coincidence. The fucking arm you're yanking it with just happens to be the one that retains all of its mass, and your left one fucking gets emaciated. So I don't know, I thought that was kind of funny and worth touching on. But anyways, so we see some pretty blatant changes here. And you get to the total lean body mass. Before is 54,018 grams, fat mass 21,784 grams, and after, in 15 days of not eating, he drops over 2,000 grams of fat mass, but he drops over 7,000 grams of lean body mass. So it ends up with he ends up with a higher body fat percentage proportionally by the end of this whole, endeavor. So it goes from 28.7% body fat up to 29.4. So obviously not the most ideal outcome. And we're going to get into, did he lose a fuck ton of muscle, or exactly what happened? We get down to his weight. We can see it went from 78.6 kilograms all the way down to 68.2. Pretty goddamn significant changes. And when you factor in the proportional fat loss versus lean body mass, it's was this the optimal way to go about it? Glucose in milligrams per deciliter, ketones, as you would expect, pretty obvious changes in these two metrics as you, completely stop eating essentially. Uric acid gets pretty fucking high. Albumin elevates into the 50s and kind of, aberrates a little bit here and there. C-reactive protein, the inflammatory marker that a lot of people defer to, and I would highly recommend you put on all of your blood test panels, already not that optimal at 3.35, and it goes up to fucking 14. 14, dude. Goddamn. By the middle of the fast, this guy is in a super inflamed state. This is a pretty, concerning elevation in C-reactive protein. Lipids, also kind of interesting. His total cholesterol actually elevates quite significantly and goes up to over 400 milligrams per deciliter. And his LDL actually rises up to, look at this baseline, dude. The LDL baseline is over 200 and it elevates up to 354. This guy is in essentially familial hypercholesterolemia territory. The guy, could qualify for a script for Repatha and a myriad of other medications. Like, the guy has a pretty concerning lipid profile, and his HDL actually gets lower, which is kind of fucking weird. He has a suboptimal HDL level, less than 40 at baseline, and it drops down to 23.2 by the end of it. Like, this guy is obviously not the most metabolically healthy individual, and I guess, maybe he was doing this fast in order to try and improve that. But you see some of these baseline metrics at the beginning were already not, the greatest. Testosterone levels goes from 436 nanograms per deciliter, kind of fluctuates up and down. At its lowest, it gets down to 200. Now, again, you have to consider this is on a diurnal rhythm. So just because, you're fasting, it doesn't necessarily account for the fact that, the 361 is that, significantly affected by, fasting, probably fucking not. But again, these numbers, even a person who's eating, are going to fluctuate this much in general on a day-to-day basis, depending on the time of day, depending on other factors, sleep quality, etc. But his test levels end up at 385, so not that much of a difference. And I guess it kind of depends at what state he was in during this initial baseline 436, but the testosterone did not change that much. Free test, though, changes fairly significantly given the fact that his SHBG goes through the fucking roof. So if you know sex hormone binding globulin, the main binding protein that regulates androgenicity in the body. So again, even if your total T is, relatively stable, your free testosterone is going to crush into the ground. This is what you see with guys chronic keto dieters or guys who are chronically fasting. This is what you will see is a significant elevation in SHBG to a point that you actually can induce a state of basically hypogonadism, despite the fact that your total T looks normal. This is what you see in carnivore diet guys, and this is actually what they figured out, fortunately, is that, oh, look at that. We need to cyclically introduce carbohydrates into our diet to avoid this shit from happening. Avoid our SHBGs climbing into the sky, representative of like a female fucking hormone level, or a binding protein level equivalent to a female, thus crushing free test into the ground. Now, again, this guy's SHBG to begin with was pretty low, so this elevation is actually getting him closer into normal territory. But this baseline is indicative of a poor state of metabolic health to begin with. This guy's not in androgens, as far as I know. This guy is just in a very, very compromised state health-wise when he goes into this fast. So that's why his SHBG at 45, is that the worst reading ever? No, but it's a result of him starting at, this is what you see basically in guys with ridiculous insulin resistance or androgen abusers, shit like that. That's what you see this SHBG in general. So anyways, as you can see, obviously the free test starts to go down as the SHBG climbs, and it ends up down at 16.25 picograms per milliliter. Liver, AST and ALT trends down a bit with the ALT pretty significantly. The AST does not really change, but again, these numbers are pretty fucking concerning, as is too. This guy have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. What's this guy have? Why are these numbers this fucked to begin with? This is not an ideal biomarker level whatsoever. ALP and GGTP. To be honest, I'm less familiar with these markers, but again, a bit more stable. Prolactin, you can see it's a bit all over the map here a bit. In nanograms per milliliter. Insulin, as you would expect, basically crashes after you start the fast. Which is going to have somewhat of an inverse relationship with your SHBG climbing up, as well as your HGH and, inducing lipolysis throughout the fast. HGH skyrockets, starts to go down and levels out a bit, goes up and down, but, overall it's going to be elevated to facilitate lipolysis throughout this process. IGF-1 starts to decline a bit. Obviously, the production of growth factors and things that have significant overlap with insulin production in the body are going to decline relatively significantly throughout the fast. There's a reason, even when you do a keto diet, within the first week or so, you lose a fuck ton of weight like that. Is that, indicative of fat loss? No, it's indicative of water loss as you deplete your body of carbohydrates. So again, a lot of it is, temporary weight that will, return depending on, how much he eats, what type of foods he eats when he, starts eating again. But I would imagine a lot of that, temporary lean body mass losses would then return. However, it would be interesting to see what his baseline then is after kind of reaching homeostasis post-fast, because I would like to see how much fat he lost relative to like actual contractile tissue. And again, the DEXs are not going to be too reliable for that, unfortunately. But again, basically circling to, is this a good idea? You know, why did this guy pursue what he did in the first place? Like, there's a lot of people commenting in here. I'm a doctor, and I believe somebody must add a warning here that this can be lethal. Drinking only water can easily disrupt your mineral balance in days to levels that cause death. Heart muscle is very sensitive to blood mineral levels, i.e. low potassium can spontaneously stop the heart. On a hot day, you lose a lot of sodium with sweat. You must regain it from food. If you stay in low sodium for a long time and correct it in a short period, that will cause severe brain damage. Search osmotic demyelination syndrome. This is real risky. There are many more things as well. Strict fasting for days is also very bad on calorie basis. Body adapts, but this is nowhere healthy. I see that your body was not very happy with this since your C-reactive protein is quite high during the period. We usually don't want to discharge patients when they have this high C-reactive protein levels, and you have very low glucose levels in the first days. Glucose lower than 50 is very bad. Neurons die in those levels. Wish you started this more slowly. And please add a warning. This can be very dangerous and not recommended at all. Sad face. This thread is very popular and can reach many odd places. So if you guys have seen my video, this is actually a really interesting one that of course got almost no attention. He fasted for a year straight and lost 276 pounds. Like, I guess this is, I don't know, like some like the really interesting scientific information does not really pop off as much as you would hope. But this is like the record for fucking most days not eating anything. All this guy did was drink water and had some, transient introduction of exogenous, not exogenous, just supplementation of fucking basic things and nutrients. But this guy, he basically went from morbidly obese to fucking dicey within a year because, he lost all the excess weight by simply not eating. These are his pants beforehand. This is his face. And look at this goddamn chiseled specimen of a human afterwards. Is this the ideal way to go about it? Probably not. Probably pretty fucking dangerous for some people. He had some oversight, but it seemed like, if I remember correctly, it was not that significant. But his health markers were all intact. Is this something that, the majority of people should pursue though? Or like, honestly, I don't think anyone has the willpower to even adhere to this shit to really, even have to make that warning. But I mean, most people are just good with a calorie deficit, basic exercise, because again, that's the most sustainable thing that you can do long term. Like, to be honest, these fasts can be reasonable for things like autophagy, for things like resetting your gut microbiome, for, getting yourself de-addicted to sugar. Shit like that might be useful. And obviously, there's potential benefits from a, cancer standpoint. I'm not saying there is for certain, but there's certainly interesting data to, delve into further in that regard. And for individuals who are, this out of shape, is that something to pursue with medical oversight? I don't know, discuss with your doctor. Who's for me to say? But it's becoming a bit more popular nowadays to introduce fasting into the equation. And I'm on board with, transient, more than 24 hours, to be honest. Like, I'm actually, I try to do a 3-day fast every, at least twice a year. It's fucking difficult though, to be honest, for me, given that I can't really handle a couple days of severe brain fog, which you end up getting over that hump and then you end up, being okay. But I mean, even that hump is not something I want to deal with when I'm, very, very work-minded and can't really afford to have, 48 hours fucking nuked where my brain's just not working properly because I'm starving. So, but again, I do see the potential therapeutic efficacy of introducing fasts. Doing a 15-day fast though, is that something I would do personally? At least at this time, probably not, especially if the goal is mainly weight loss. If you're trying to correct for biomarkers too, like again, you can see the stress this could have on your body. I'm not saying this might not be a potentially healthy thing in some, contexts, but obviously in other contexts, it can be pretty stressful on your body given the elevations in C-reactive protein, some of these significant aberrations, obviously the risk profile associated with potentially dehydrating your body. Stuff like that may be, definitely requires a trained professional to oversee you ideally during this process. And this is a pretty fucking interesting thread that uric acid is sky high. Yeah, this needs a don't do this at home label. Do you really want to enable gout and dehydration during fasting? can really mess with your kidneys. A lot of fighters have serious kidney problems that stay for life because of weight cutting. Another concern is the potentially fatal refeeding syndrome if you eat too much food at once after fasting. Edit, rapid weight loss can cause gallstones, can lead to gallstones. Fasting is great, but 15 days is an exceptionally long time. Here are a few obvious things. Glucose drops and ketones increase, indicating he's not eating. Cholesterol are pretty constant except for triglycerides. Yeah, I guess we should go look at the actual, I kind of skimmed over the lipids there. Where is it? Oh yeah, we see his triglycerides, trend down, which is something you would expect. The interesting thing to me though was his HDL getting almost halved was fucking weird. Total cholesterol elevating, all but transiently. LDL as well. This is the main thing I would expect is the triglycerides going down. And yeah, so anyway, let's see what they say here. I was just in the middle of it, which is the primary form of lipid your body fat is made of. C-reactive protein, marker inflammation. Maybe some organs are working a bit harder without food. I don't know what to make of liver enzymes. I'm not sure enough time passed during this experiment to say anything about all the hormones being measured like prolactin and testosterone, since they can vary over time naturally. Yeah, obviously if this guy continued to extend the fast, eventually the testosterone levels would continue to dip and he would end up in frankly, he would end up in hypogonadal symptom territory sooner due to the continuous spike in binding protein production as his body basically freaks the fuck out. And he would end up, libidoless, feeling like shit. Having maybe your mind might be sharp, but your fucking body is going to perform terribly. Maybe some people might have opposition to that, but in general, like your free androgen levels will mostly dictate what your athletic performance, muscle building abilities, things like that will be. And if you're letting your SHBG skyrocket, those things are going to be negatively impacted. And again, is why a lot of people who are carbophobes or whatever you would call it, people who've chronically avoided them, end up with, really fucking low free testosterone levels and need to, start to cyclically introduce things like honey back into their diet, like the carnivore diet people. Can you maintain a good body composition when you have no carbs? Sure. Can you gain muscle? Sure. We're talking about fasting though here. And again, even if you're talking about having adequate amounts of food, it's not going to be optimal for muscle growth when you're deprived entirely of carbohydrates. I think we can all, get on board with that. And obviously significant sustained durations of time with complete nutrient deprivation are going to negatively impact athletic performance and eventually end up in hypogonadal territory with your total T production as well. So anyways, most interesting thing is that the crash diet didn't seem to move the cholesterol and blood pressure. So I would take away that if you think you can quickly treat some of these things by dieting, you're not going to get the results you're looking for. Yeah, there was a sharp increase in cholesterol. Makes perfect sense to me. Cholesterol is how fats are moved around the body. They're not exactly soluble in blood plasma. So in order for them to be shuttled to the liver to get broken up for ketones, cholesterol is required. Fact of the matter is that the liver keeps a handle on the amount of cholesterol in the circulation. Blah, blah, blah. Eating fats will make you produce more in order to deal with them. And as you can see in the chart, not eating at all will make you produce more so that existing fat stores can get moved around faster. Anyways, a lot of people talking about, what should this guy, was it stupid? Was it, is this a reasonable strategy? Should he have introduced, electrolytes in order to maintain better levels of hydration? Why were things like his HDL lowered? Pretty interesting thread and definitely worth delving into, especially if you're more of a nerd on the nutrition side as well as from the biology side. Obviously very interesting to see what happened to this guy's endocrine parameters as well as his before and after DEXA to see, how much muscle did this guy lose relative to fat mass, and is this, a more aggressive, better approach to body composition changes for, people who are seeking to get leaner? Or is this a terrible idea and you would be better off with a sustained calorie deficit and a reasonable exercise routine? And that's not to say you can't exercise during this, but there's actually a lot of individuals that will, propose that short acute exposures to, not exposure, just like acute phases of complete nutrient deprivation may otherwise prevent in less, metabolic, slowdown than, sustained multiple month-long caloric deficits, traditional, diet models that require you to basically, eat 500 deficit, 600 deficit, whatever it is, with, elevating levels of cardio for months on end versus, acutely fucking stripping fat off your frame and then getting back to a normal diet model after you've, peeled the weight off. I can see more of an argument, being built in this camp as the months and years progress with a lot of the, fasting, biohacking sphere really getting into the shit. What is the answer? I don't think the DEXA will reveal, unfortunately, what exactly actually happened because there's so much fuckery that goes on when it comes to hydration levels and lean body mass outcomes that I don't think we can gather this guy lost that much muscle, because otherwise, if that was the case, like, this would be fucking brutal. Like, this would be a horrible, just absolute decimation of this guy's muscle tissue, that it would be, you know, completely idiotic to ever engage in a fast whatsoever. But so I don't think that's the case. But do I think this is necessarily, you know, an ideal approach to fat loss? Probably not. Most people aren't going to be able to stick to it anyways, but interesting nonetheless. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Have you ever tried a multiple day fast? What's the longest one you've done? What did you find in terms of just how did it go in general? Did you get any biomarkers checked? Have you done any kind of metrics to assess it compared to a normal calorie deficit? Like, for me, what I can say is when I've done like even 24-hour fasts or, you know, multiple day fasts, I've only done a few multiple day fasts, to be honest. Usually they're 24 hours at most. And when I've done them, sometimes they're actually a bit easier to, you know, get what I needed to get done from a body composition aspect than doing a week of a sustained deficit. Is it ideal though from a muscle tissue aspect? You know, it'd be interesting to see it stack up, dude. I'd be interesting to see. You know, obviously when it comes to training though and getting in the gym, are you gonna get a good workout when you're totally deprived of nutrients for, you know, multiple days on end? No. And obviously if you're natural, there's a significant impact things are going to have on your hormone levels when you're doing this for more than, you know, multiple days at a time. It's going to be pretty significant and obviously really outweigh any sort of ROI that you might have otherwise got with a, you know, more reasonable, logical, you know, I don't know, tried and true approach of a normal calorie deficit. So anyways, again, kind of interested to hear what you guys have to say. If anyone has experience with this, any kind of thoughts are appreciated. Check out this thread for sure. It's pretty elaborate and it looks like it's getting a lot of traction right now. Look at all these fucking awards it's gotten. It's gotten 31 silver awards. It's got 39 helpful awards. It's got the infamous spit take award. It's got gold. It's got even this thing, the platinum. Fucking unreal, dude. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. All comments help the algorithm. They're much appreciated. Like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplates.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplates.dates, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, I just fucked that up colossally. I don't even remember my social media platforms. Facebook, Snapchat. It's because I didn't say BitChute. It fucked me up. Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anything else that I'm on, it's down in the video description, as well as anything else that is helps support the channel. You know, like I mentioned, the clothing, definitely check that out if you're interested. Gorilla Mind, nootropic formulas, Gorilla Mode, pre-workout formulas, design myself from scratch. Recommended lab tests and diagnostics, something you should be doing regardless if you're enhanced or natural, in my opinion, to stay on top of your health, your quality of life. Check shit like this. If you had familial hypercholesterolemia, this is something you would determine through blood work ideally and address it fucking ASAP, as well as my recommended diet model for gaining muscle and sports performance that's mindful of keeping shit like this in check, like having a, you know, hypertensive blood pressure with, you know, borderline tachycardia in the middle of a fucking fast does not seem ideal to me. This is the kind of shit that would otherwise be regulated by a high quality diet model. And you can check that out in the video description below, as well as anything else I'm associated with that helps support the channel. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.